Alright guys, today I'm going to do my pass at a raid guide for the Destiny 2 Leviathan raid that launched this past week. The guide has taken me a bit of time because I wanted to produce something that was clear, informative, and thoroughly explained instead of just slapping a bit of commentary on top of a basic run-through. I'm a little bit late to the scene because of this, and a lot of other guides have already been published, but my hope is that this in-depth guide, in particular, will be of great help to a lot of players as they try to complete the activity for the first time. Before we get started, I want to make something clear. This video is not a guide on the raid's secret areas or special chests. There's a bunch of different ways to move throughout the pyramid, so if a teammate knows a different way, feel free to follow that path. It doesn't really make a huge difference. This guide is purely for the fight and room mechanics that players must complete in order to get the main rewards. If this guide ends up being helpful, I'll do a separate video with all the secret locations, chests, etc., and all the areas, as well as how to get to or access them. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's begin. The raid drops you in front of a massive golden pyramid with a couple groups of passive enemies arranged in front of you, here and here. Do not shoot these enemies, simply run past them and make it up to the main courtyard, which is where the first challenge presents itself. This room is the main courtyard, from which other rooms are accessed, and you may end up completing this first room's fight multiple times over the course of the raid. Again, there are other avenues to navigate the raid that squads can take, but this is a very easy phase anyways, so it's not really important to skip. You can crank this out whenever you have to, and there are rewards associated with this courtyard phase. In this room, there are 4 plates on the ground, each one with one of the raid's 4 specific symbols. There is a beast, a chalice, blades, sometimes called axes, and a sun. These are recurring symbols throughout the entire raid. Each of these 4 symbols is dispersed across the main courtyard room. The first plate your team will go to is the sun plate. Upon tagging the sun plate and activating it, the main sun will disappear, and one of the other 3 remaining symbols will pop up. The strategy is pretty simple. 4 of your team's players will stay and guard the plate while the 2 remaining players locate the next plate indicated by the small symbol here, kill the surrounding monsters, also kill a standard bearer which will activate a banner on that plate, which is then brought back and slammed into the main plate that your team members are defending. It's pretty simple. This phase is repeated by the 2 roaming players until all of the standards have been placed. After a banner has been placed, the 4 defending players must be aware that liberators, which have a kind of crown headdress on them, will approach from the left, the right, and the center. If they get close enough to any one of the banners that have been placed in the main plate, they will steal it and teleport away, setting the progress back. Liberators must be killed quickly before they reach the plate. Also, over the course of the fight, a counselor will periodically spawn. He can be recognized by a white shield surrounding him, and he often spawns a bit away from the main conflict, so he needs to be searched out and sought out. He must be killed as quickly as possible. If he is not killed, he will shield the liberators, making them immune to damage, which will allow them to walk up and steal the banners, which will set the team back. After all 3 banners have been slammed into the plate, the door to the next fight will open. The next room is the bathing room. This phase is a bit more complicated and requires a lot more coordination from your team. Upon entering, there will be 5 plates on the ground spread across the room, located here, 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 and here. 2 on the left of the room, 2 on the right of the room, and 1 in the dead center. Each of these plates has an orb on it, which will give a temporary buff called psionic protection. The buff will make players immune to a certain type of damage, which is caused by the water spread across the ground, and allows them to stand in it without taking damage. One thing to be aware of in this room is that wherever chains descend into the ground, they are surrounded by a metal rail, and the triangle-shaped pool directly beneath the chains within that rail is an instant kill area, and any guardian who falls into it will die. Displayed on screen for a minute is a bird's eye view map of the plate locations within the room, as you can see. Also, when a player dies, they will start a death timer which counts down from 30. If it reaches 0, the entire squad will wipe. No ifs, ands, or buts. To prevent this, they must be revived within that given time frame. Another important mechanic is that players may only revive a fallen teammate 1 time. If an ally goes down and you revive them, you are no longer able to revive anyone else, and this can sometimes cause squads to wipe if they don't communicate properly. These mechanics are present in all of the main rooms except for the courtyard that the players just came from. The strategy for this event is to divide squads into 2 teams of 3. 1 player for the top and bottom plate on either side, and 1 player in the middle who will then rotate and switch places with their teammates. To begin, 5 players step onto the plates at exactly the same time, each getting the psionic protection buff temporarily. This will raise the chains and start the event. The 2 players in the middle, demonstrated right now, will grab the protection buff one after the other, and then make their way to the top platform on each side. As the event starts and everyone tags their plates, bathers will rise out of the chain pools, directly in front of the players on each of the side plates. These bathers have dual swords and function pretty much like a Red Legion gladiator. The easiest method of killing them is to throw a damaging grenade onto them, and then unload a couple of shots from a shotgun heavy weapon, or a rocket launcher, or something similar, and they will die pretty quickly. The middle player, once he arrives at the top player's plate, will swap positions, and the top player will run down to the center, refresh his protection, and then rotate down to the bottom player's plate. Right about now, a bather is usually spawning, and it's an easy call out to focus fire and drop him quickly. The bottom player, whose protection is most likely starting to run low at this point, then trades positions with the player who just arrived and runs into the center to grab new protection, and then repeat the process by heading to the top side. Here is an overview of the rotation. It's a simple triangle shape happening on both sides. While all of this is happening and all of the 4 side players are standing on their plates, all of the chains will be descending. And after all 4 chains have reached the bottom, gold arms will click into place, followed by a loud gong sound, and it will be time for phase 2. As soon as the gong plays, all 6 players meet in the center directly on top of the middle plate. This is the perfect time for a warlock to use their healing rift and their storm lightning super. The super will clear monsters out for the middle group of players as they deal as much damage as possible to the clusters of purple canisters that are in the top 2 corners of the room and on the central bottom wall. There are 9 canisters in total, and a well-coordinated team can kill all of them in one round if they have high enough damage, though that's not most likely going to happen for most squads. For most teams, one single round will not be enough to kill all the canisters before they go immune again, in which case the players will resume their previous starting positions after dealing as much damage as possible. As the damage phase ends, a counselor with a white shield will spawn. He must be meleeed in order to kill him, and then a scion will spawn somewhere else in the central room, who must also be killed by the 2 middle players in order to prevent an instant kill explosion from wiping out the squad after a short timer. Once this has been done, the chains will rise, and you complete the exact same process again to get another crack at the canisters. Once all the purple canisters have been destroyed, the room is complete, and you may go collect your reward. After the bathing ritual has been disrupted, by taking the main progression path, you will end up back in the main courtyard. This phase is identical to the first courtyard phase, the only difference being the location of the main floor plate on which you are slamming the banners. Check which symbol, find the corresponding plate, kill its guardian and its additional mobs, then return it, while the defending players make sure to prevent liberators from stealing the banners and always kill the shielded counselors, same as before. Once this is done, the next path opens, a reward chest appears, and you may advance to the dog phase. This is arguably the hardest phase in the raid, not because it is difficult to actually do, or because it has hard combat, but because it is difficult to learn. I will do my best to break it down clearly. The first thing to do is to clear out the various monsters already lurking around. Once that is finished, 2 crystal prism weapons will spawn on top of the golden bunker on one side of the room. This is where the team splits apart and the coordination starts. 2 players will remain up top to grab the prism weapons, while 4 players drop down into the bunker to pick up glowing spores and sneak through the gardens to charge up a damage buff for the team. I'll explain the 2 top players' roles first. The top players will grab the prism weapons, and once both have been grabbed, 6 monster hounds will spawn. These hounds are very difficult to kill, and will prowl the garden looking for players. The players with the prism weapons will need to jump from platform to platform and stand in circles of light to be able to shoot their prism weapons, and will be calling out the locations of magic flowers which spawn throughout the room. It is best to have whichever party members feel most comfortable making callouts and precision jumps carry the prism weapons on top. Displayed on screen right now is a basic map of the room, with the potential flower locations on either side. There's right 1, right 2, right 3, and left 1, left 2, left 3, as well as the ones in the middle. Each time one of the flower buffs is acquired, it will provide 12 stacks of a damage buff that will help kill the dogs. During this phase, everyone in the party must be crouched and stealthy, including the players on top with the prism weapons. The dogs can look upwards at times, so whenever possible, and even when standing in the light circle, players should crouch down to avoid being seen. The players with the prism weapons have a couple of responsibilities, other than calling out where the flower is that they actually spot. Number 1, they must stand in one of the light spots and shoot the flower once their teammates at ground level have gotten up close to it. And number 2, if a Beastmaster spawns, they must stand in a light well and shoot him as well, in order to kill him. The Beastmasters are very easy to kill and don't deal a whole lot of damage, so they should be taken out whenever possible, but don't panic if it isn't instantaneous. Now showing the ground perspective. Once the prism weapons have been grabbed, the doors on top of the bunker will open. 4 players drop down and grab a magic spore from the wall. Once they have this spore, they group up, crouch down, and start to make their way to the flowers in the garden while staying away from the dogs. Never sprint and slide. In some circumstances, you can sprint if the dogs are far enough away, but never ever slide. The players on top will call out flower locations, as seen on this map, and the players below then begin to make their way there, avoiding the 6 dogs. Once they group up, the top player shoots the spore. The team collects its buff by standing very close to it as it's shot, and the players move back, regroup, and go towards the next flower. Now displayed on screen is a map with all of the dog pathways. It may take some time, but there are very easy routes to follow to each flower if you have memorized the dog's roaming pattern. If you are detected, the players will all drop what they are carrying, both spores and prism weapons, and they will then utilize whatever stacks of the damage buff they were able to obtain from the flowers to deal damage to the dogs. The objective is to kill 6 dogs within 3 rounds. If you are detected before you are ready, with no stacks at all, or having only gotten 1 flower, it is likely a wipe. However, if you are detected after getting a few flowers, it is up to the team how they want to handle it. Once detected, the dogs will run immediately back to one of the flower spawn locations spread throughout the room, and it is the player's job to track them there and eliminate them. You only have a limited window to do this. The dogs will howl for 1 minute, leaving players with roughly 30 seconds to deal as much damage as possible after they're detected, and 30 seconds, give or take, to get back to the golden bunker room and drop down through the doors on the ceiling before they close in order to avoid an instant death wipe when the dogs finish their howling phase. There are quite a few strategies here for eliminating the dogs, but a few work better than others. Number 1, teams can get 2 or 3 stacks of the buffs and heavily damage as many dogs as possible for round 1 and 2, and then quickly run from dog to dog during round 3 and kill them all. Another strategy is to use 5 stacks of the flower buff, or even 6, and then assign each player their own dog to kill and do it all in 1 round. Yet another is to get as many flowers as possible, but if detected early, simply deal as much damage as possible to whatever dog you're closest to before making your way back. But regardless of how you choose to do it in terms of damaging the dogs themselves, I strongly advise coordinating to kill the dogs all at once during the same round. If you kill 2 or 3 dogs early, but not all 6, it will make it easier to move throughout the garden unseen, but it will also greatly decrease how much time you are allowed to do so. You won't have as much time to get the flowers in order to then kill the dogs, and it can do a lot more harm than good. The higher the player's power, the higher the damage output, the less flowers are required to efficiently kill dogs, and however a team decides to do it, once 6 dogs have been killed within 3 rounds, the way will open and you may collect your reward. However you choose to then progress, again, like I said, there are a bunch of ways to navigate the Leviathan Pyramid. You will probably end up back in the courtyard for another round of the banner to open the door. I won't bother explaining again, you know the drill. Now it's just a different platform you will be defending and bringing the banners to. Once the doors open, you can grab another reward and move on. At the intro to the next event, players will find an elevator which requires all 6 members to stand on the central platform in order to activate it. Once all teammates are present, the elevator will lift the squad up to a circular room which houses the next encounter. This encounter requires a lot of coordination, and there are mildly different methods that teams use, but the majority of the concepts are still the same. The room has the same 4 major symbols present throughout the raid. They're spread around the circle. Directly across from each symbol is a large raised plate, which must be jumped on to lower them and start the fight. It is best to designate 1 player to each symbol, and that is the area they will primarily be responsible for. The remaining 2 players will have a separate role. Once all 4 plates have been stepped on and lowered, enemies will spawn on the outskirts of the circle to the left and right of each symbol. The player whose zone it is will kill as many monsters as they can, while the 2 remaining players roam around and help whoever needs it. Once enough enemies have been killed, a heavy shielded enemy will spawn at one side of each of the symbols. This enemy must be killed quickly, and a fantastic weapon to do so is the Merciless Exotic Fusion Rifle. It has solar damage, they have a solar shield, it works great. If you don't have that, you can also use a sword, it will also work in a really fantastic way. Once he has been killed, the heavy enemy that spawned, in every single zone, 2 orbs will spawn. One spawns at the beast and one spawns at the cup. The 2 roaming players who don't have a set zone will grab the orbs at roughly the same time and be teleported into the outside ring of the room. When the runner teleports, they will have a few seconds to communicate key information before the phase starts. They will need to say the symbol displayed here, and then identify which ring is red. As seen here, the callout for this screenshot would be Beast Top. This will tell the 4 players outside exactly what to do. Back in the main area, the 4 players will jump up to their symbol's platform, which is now raised up, and will prepare to shoot one of the 3 arrows below each wall symbol. Whatever symbol and row the runner calls mean that the other 2 arrows beneath that symbol would need to be shot simultaneously. There are a lot of ways to do this, and each squad will probably have a slightly different method or way. But the system I use is to have every player help the teammate to their left, and each player predetermine up or down, meaning out of the 2 arrows they should shoot, after hearing the runner's call out, they will shoot either the highest one or the lowest one. Since I could not be in 2 places at once, I don't have the exact footage from my, stint around the runner's area. For this clip, where I was playing on the inside and a shooter, the call out would have been from the runner, cup bottom. And as per my role, I shot the highest arrow I could, while the player whose symbol it actually was, to my left, shot the lower arrow, being the middle one, to hit them at the same time, turn them green, and allow our runner to advance. The runners will each start on opposite sides of the circle and move clockwise, so don't forget that there will be another runner soon after your first one passes. Every single time a runner passes your zone, directly in front of your platform, a counselor with a white shield will spawn. You must jump off the platform, get close to him, kill him with a melee attack, and then return to your platform quickly. If at any point you shoot the wrong symbol, or the arrows turn red on a zone where the runner is, it will spawn a floating scion somewhere in the vicinity. These are easy to kill, but if they are left too long alive, they will detonate and kill the whole team. So whenever an arrow turns red, be very vocal, call it out, head on a swivel, and find the scion and kill it quickly. After the runners complete a full rotation, they will teleport back inside, at which point they will run to the middle and slam their orbs. And that is part 1 of this phase. Once it has been completed, you do exactly the same thing again. Kill enemies, kill the heavy that spawns, get on your platform. The runner will call out what symbol they are at, as well as which row has the red circle. The shooters on the outside coordinate to shoot the other 2 arrows at the same time. The runner advances, then slams their orbs. This phase repeats 3 times or until 6 orbs have been slammed. If a runner dies and you only get 1 orb in a round, then you must do another full rotation or run, but upon reaching 6 orbs, all players immediately run to the center. Once at the center, orbs will spawn at each one of the blue flame sculptures. Every single team member needs to grab one, and you will all get teleported outside into the runner's ring. Once you are all in the outside circle, you need to communicate. Because of the 9 possible holes to go through, only 4 will have orbs which need to be grabbed. Call out which one you are going to, and who will not receive one. Then on the next wall, the players who did not get one of the hovering orbs within the circles on the first one, grab one this time. Try to keep as many players alive as possible, but a minimum of 3 must complete the course and slam their orbs to get the required 9. The floor will start to shift, the jump pattern will get harder, and if someone goes down, the first player out of the course, who gets back to the main room and slams their orb, should then immediately revive one of their fallen teammates, who will have appeared next to the center once they were dead, in order to extend the instant death timer. Once 3 members have slammed orbs, the event is over and you may collect your reward and move on. Now we have the final raid boss. This guy is what it's all built up to. In the throne room, there are the same 4 symbol plates: the beast, the sun, the blades, and then the cup, and it is important to know which one is where. To begin the fight, and honestly for some reason this is like my favorite part of the entire raid, and it's absolutely my favorite trigger mechanism for a boss fight in any game, you shoot the Emperor's goblet out of his hand. Really pisses him off. Once triggered, the boss will stand, and monsters will begin to spawn. Easy ones here and there, and then 3 incinerators. 1 from the left, 1 from the right, and 1 from the middle under the throne. After these have been killed, 4 counselors will spawn, 1 on each platform. You do not kill these counselors. If you do kill a counselor, it will spawn a centurion, which has a shield, and it's a harder enemy, and you don't want to do that. Instead, wait a few seconds. The boss will clap his hands, and the whole squad will get teleported to what I call the void. This is where the team splits up. Inside the void there are 3 orbs, enough for 3 team members to tag 1 each and come back to the throne room. I recommend having your 3 highest light characters come back, since they will be dealing with quite a few monsters and adds here and there. The players in the void will be communicating information to the players in the throne room, while staying alive as the giant face attempts to suck them in and eat them. The players in the throne room will need to kill a specific counselor to keep the players in the void alive by giving them additional purple energy barriers to stand behind. Each player in the void will need to get to the purple energy wall and stand behind it, but avoid the inclined surfaces, which would cause them to jump through the air. If they hit one, they will die and be spawned back in the throne room. Each player inside the void will also see a different symbol on the giant face's forehead, and they will need to call out which one they see. Once they have, the players in the throne room will need to kill the counselor standing on the platform of the symbol that was not called out. This will spawn 2 scions in the void, which must be killed to avoid a wipe, as well as spawn an additional energy barrier further towards the face to stop the void players from getting sucked into its mouth. After the 2 scions are dead, and they must be killed quickly just to reiterate, the symbol on his forehead will rotate for each player within the void. They will need to call it out again, and the throne room team will have to once again kill the counselor on the platform that was not called out. This time it will spawn 2 floating scions and also 3 ground level scions within the void, right here. The ground level scions will use a knock-up attack, which will push the void players over the barrier they're hiding behind and into the monster's mouth as it sucks them up, if it lands, so they should be killed immediately, which is very easy to do because they have very little health. This rotation of call out, killed counselor, spawn scions will happen 4 times in total. On the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th time, there will be ground level scions, so the void players should always be aware. Once the 4th call out has happened, the void players will have been pulled very close to the floating face. After all the scions are dead, the face will start to spew out floating skulls from its mouth that will home in on the 3 void players. The void players will need to shoot as many skulls as they possibly can, as quickly as they can. Some tips for this are to use the Arc Soul buff from the Warlock's Healing Rift, which will help quite a bit, as well as an auto rifle as your primary or a 3-round burst sidearm as your secondary, both of which will work very well for killing skulls quickly. Effectively, what the skulls are is a damage multiplier buff that you need in order to deal actual damage to the final boss in the throne room. While this is all happening inside the void, the players in the throne room will see the boss put up a shield. The 2 squads must communicate, because when the players in the throne room break that shield that he just put up, the players in the void will lose the ability to gain the damage buff from killing the skulls, and they'll be presented with 3 teleport orbs to come out of the void. They must each tag one to come back to the throne room. I advise getting to at least 50 plus skulls before breaking the boss's shield and bringing the void players back. 70 plus is ideal. 80, 90, 100 is where people are starting to actually one-phase this boss, but that's not practical for most teams. And numbers that high are a little bit tricky. So at least 50 plus in terms of how many skulls you've killed. Once all players are back inside, the damage phase begins. Players need to stack up on top of one of the 4 platforms and start to deal as much damage as they can because the boss is no longer immune, he is now vulnerable. Some great tips for this are to use the Cold Heart exotic rifle, which deals more damage the more it charges up its beam. And since it's a stationary target, and you will hit max charges, it deals huge damage. When the boss raises his hand, he starts to summon a solar explosion. The team must move to the next platform and get off of their current platform, or they will all be instantly killed. You have 4 platforms to utilize, and depending on how many damage buff skulls were killed, you can actually complete this in 1 phase, but realistically it's going to take 2 or 3. At certain damage thresholds, the boss's parts will start to come off and his attacks will change. He will start to periodically aim his gun at players instead of using his arm to summon the solar explosion, which is a cue to move to the next platform, or again, you'll lose too many players because it's an instant kill. After all 4 platforms have been used and your team has stood on all of them to damage the boss, the fight will revert to the starting phase as the whole team kills monsters and then the 3 incinerators spawn. Like before, once all of the incinerators are dead, the boss will raise his hands and clap and the team goes to the void, and the 3 players quickly tag the orbs to come back to the throne room, the same 3 as before. The void players get on their barrier, call out their symbols, and the throne team kills the counselor on the platform that was not on one of the symbols called. The void players kill their scions, and you go through the same stages. The difference now is that there will be missing floor segments, so the void players must be extra careful not to fall through the floor. After they get through the phases, the face will start to spew skulls again, kill as many as you can, and then the throne room team will break the boss's shield and spawns the orbs, which allow the void players to return to the throne room. You see where I'm going with this. The fight doesn't really change after you've learned the phases. This brings the team to the second of the 3 damage phases, where they hit the boss as hard as they can, and coordinated teams will kill him on this phase, or even the previous single phase. If you weren't able to though, don't worry about it, you have one more crack at it, but the mechanics will not change after this point. Once you get enough damage in to reduce the boss's health bar to 0, he will spawn one final shield, and the team should group up on top of him, melee, deal as much damage as they possibly can, as fast as they can. Any close range supers, now is the time to pop them, and once they have done enough, the boss will collapse, and the raid comes to a close, a glorious close. Congratulations, you have beaten the Leviathan raid. You can now jump down the center hole, the center elevator, run across the bridge, and collect your final reward. That's going to pretty much wrap it up, and before ending, I want to say a huge thank you to King Macho and the Legion of Kings clan for helping me not only complete the raid and nail down all the strategy, etc., but also for accommodating me as I gathered different perspectives, shot footage, and created this guide. You can check out King Macho's stream by clicking the link down below in the description. If you want to support Upper Echelon, visit upperechelon.gg to access our forums. There will be various events and giveaways associated exclusively with those forums, as well as some, special stuff involving Destiny 2, which I'm working up right now. And as we grow the community, there'll be more and more stuff there on our website, so please check those out. As well as the various other links down below, including the Amazon affiliate link to support for free. There's a whole bunch of ways to get integrated with the community and to help out the initiative of producing this kind of content. A thumbs up would be hugely appreciated. Considering the time it took to do this video, to make it right, it would be very, very much appreciated. And if people are interested, I can do a similar type of guide for the secret areas and, all the other nicks and knacks in the raid if that's something of interest. And I'll do my best to keep putting out quality Destiny 2 content. Thanks for watching, everyone, and as always, have a nice night.